All that matters is inside that ring. When Oleksandr Usyk, the former undisputed cruiserweight champion, makes the first defense, or looks to, of his 3 heavyweight world titles that he won in 2021 on the road in the backyard, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium there against Anthony Joshua, AJ. Rafe, the beauty of you and I doing this podcast today is it was more you than me, but I certainly came around. You're looking, if people are watching, they're looking at a day one-ish Oleksandr Usyk fan. And you and I got so high on this man that I once walked up to Eddie Hearn. You remember that in New York City? I told you about it. And I said, Eddie, I love you, but Usyk's coming, and he's going to beat your boy AJ. Well, Rafe, it happened. First, how surprised were you 2021 when this actually all went down?
No, Brian, I wouldn't say that I was surprised, but I also wasn't someone who was like so high on the Usyk hype train, especially at heavyweight, because that was a big leap. We had seen him look incredible at cruiserweight and unify all the belts and just, win incredible, like put in great performances against Murat Gassiev in the World Boxing Super Sis, all that. But then fighting up that high in weight against such a larger man who, in AJ, he is, I think, unfairly rated, especially here in the States. The Andy Ruiz performance, that first loss, and just AJ's attitude he comes off as a little too happy-go-lucky. He's got that golden boy, and I mean that as an intentional Oscar De La Hoya reference. He's when he loses the same way after Oscar lost to Trinidad. It's like, great for him. I'm just happy to be here, and fans don't like seeing that, especially here in the States. But still, I thought it was a dangerous fight for Usyk. As much as I believed in him, I didn't know if he could pull that off. And watching it, it was just, it felt like everything was coming together. The fighter that we believed Usyk could be as a heavyweight, he actually executed it. And, no matter how talented a fighter is, it doesn't always work out that way.
No, absolutely. I mean, this was a brilliant performance where I think, to your point, like you mentioned, everything came together, and the everything also includes not getting screwed on the cards, right? The everything also includes, and Luke Thomas and I rewatched this fight, that people can catch it on youtube.com/morningcombat and get our, in the moment reflections looking back. But I think you look back on this, the problem, in my eyes, for AJ was that he came in thinking he can outbox the smaller man, and he didn't necessarily make the right adjustments or playing into the role as the bigger man, the bigger, stronger, leaning, doing some of that Vlad Klitschko versus Povetkin type of stuff. We didn't see any of that out of him. That it did sort of make for a perfect storm, that if Usyk could come in, dazzle in the way he did, not get stopped, because the one thing we said about him, we know he doesn't have top-end heavyweight power, but does he have a top-end heavyweight chin to get to this point? Well, look, his heavyweight debut was kind of, late replacement, was a snoozer. Then he fights Derek Chisora, where there's a lot of good, but he also had to deal with a physical, real heavyweight in Del Boy and dealt with it. I don't think he in the end fought what would have been the best showing of AJ for different reasons. It created a perfect storm. It was a brilliant performance, but would you agree with me that you exited that first fight going, man, shout out to Usyk, because damn was he brilliant, because he had to establish early that he could hurt AJ, and I think he did establish that. But I never saw AJ, just like in the Andy Ruiz rematch, go into that gear that said, no matter what, I'm biting down, digging in, and winning this fight. Is that an accurate portrayal from your eyes of the first fight?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Brian. Especially, you mentioned it, that first round, Usyk, the Southpaw, comes out and landed, 3 really right on the button straight lefts that made the fight play out, especially over those first 4 rounds, that Usyk really, really dominated. I think he swept them. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. And I think that it said that he was going to dictate, and he really did control the action in terms of, ring generalship, the best punches landed through most of the fight, especially that first half. And that is where I think AJ probably made a mistake. Now, maybe AJ intended on coming out and being the boss that night last year, and it just didn't work out that way. So but it didn't play out that way in the ring. So Usyk either took it from him, or AJ made that mistake. And I think what we've seen, the people who've had some success against Usyk it has come early. They haven't let Usyk establish his rhythm right away. That was who? Tony Bellew. Bellew did it by being more cagey, counterpunching, fighting off the ropes. AJ can't do that. That's not AJ would be insane to do that. That's not going to be this. Chisora showed something that maybe AJ can implement in a more athletic, less sort of wild man Chisora fashion, where he used his bulk and his strength and bum rushed Usyk. And really, although I don't think Usyk was in the kind of trouble that, like, if you listen to the British broadcast of those fights, they're like, Derek Chisora might pull this off. Like, all right, mates, chill. But he didn't let Usyk
bang it full of cortisone and get on with it. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't let Usyk get his rhythm going. Usyk, it took a little longer for Usyk to sort of weather that storm, wait out Chisora, let Chisora, shoot a little bit of his load watch, and then start. Look, we know what we're dealing with here, Brian, don't we? And look, I think it's likely that AJ will try and do that. He'll try and be more aggressive. He won't give away those early rounds, or he won't want to. But can he take them? Can he be more aggressive and successful in that early in the fight? And if he does, AJ has stamina problems. Is that going to come back to bite him later in the fight?
AJ doesn't have it's weird. You started off saying an interesting statement of maybe the American fans won't fully give AJ his due. And I think that's right. Are we naturally skeptical to begin with of that big UK star? Always, right? Come to Vegas and prove it. But also, look, he learned on the job, right? He came into that title opportunity against Prince Sir Charles Martin early. Then suddenly he's the champion learning on the job. The fact that every single win had sort of these pockets of vulnerability, going back to the first Dillian White fight, even the first couple rounds against Carlos Takam of all people, he got rocked. He is going to be who he is. He's going to be vulnerable, but not a direct comparison to Lennox Lewis. But what did Lennox Lewis do that at the end of the day made it hard to play that same American stereotype against? He got up off the canvas after being stopped by two guys in title fights and came back and knocked them both out. Now, AJ didn't do that in the Ruiz rematch. He safely boxed him from distance, and maybe that's part of why he still carries a certain level of criticism, whereas, we all know Fury's better if he could just get in the ring with him. Maybe all that's true. But AJ still has really tried to round out his game and become a good boxer. He gets up off the canvas like he did against Vladimir and kept coming back and found a way to win. I think when he looks back at this fight, all the things that we said are true about what he didn't do or couldn't do or should have done. And we'll get into the change now in trainer that has become a dominant theme in this rematch. But one thing we cannot overlook, Rafe, is that Usyk, and I harped on this when we did the rewatch of the fight with Luke, he had to take some bombs of his own, especially in those middle rounds when AJ came on, in order to stand in there and win this fight the way he did. And Usyk, did he not in the post-fight interview after the win say, you may have not noticed it, but I got hurt. There's a couple of those counter shots, especially that straight right hand when AJ figured it out in the middle of this fight, where Usyk had to bite down to get there. Maybe he's a better poker player than people realized. But in theory, as we head into this rematch, if we get a more offensive and dangerous and confident AJ, who at the very least is saying, I can't outbox him, I now know that. But I might be able to outfight him. This fight could be an entirely different story, and I think that's what fuels the intrigue the second time around.
No, absolutely. I mean, and you saw in the middle of that fight, rounds 5 and 6, when AJ found a home for that right hand, those were serious punches. And forget what Usyk says after the fight. Yes, he admitted it himself, but it's not just that, Brian. Look at him in that fight. I mean, he was cut above the eye. I think that one was not from a punch, but still, he was roughed up too. And that's just what's going to happen fighting 12 rounds and giving up the amount of size that he was to just a much naturally bigger heavyweight in Anthony Joshua, who can punch, and when he lets his hands go, has a lot of power. All right, he didn't always look good, but he has to let his hands go in this rematch, even if that means risking gassing himself out, putting him in a position where he has to, survive a couple rounds, tread water, figure out some way to get through and catch a second wind. Because if he doesn't take that risk, I don't know if he's going to be able to do something else that throws Usyk off, that gives Usyk a reason to just go out and fight his fight. Yeah,
no question about it. Now, look, this rematch will take place Saturday afternoon on regular DAZN not on DAZN pay-per-view, and it was a last-minute sort of contract securing. You saw some reports that ESPN tried to make a bid to get this fight. I'm sure there's a big site fee. If we remember, AJ went to Saudi Arabia for the Ruiz rematch, and didn't he make like $80 million just to show up? It was almost like Floyd Mayweather, Pacquiao, here's with the $100 million check just to step into the ring. Not bad work if you can get it. Now look, the Robert Garcia thing is going to be big. Rob McCracken out, the old AJ team out. He made a big change here. This could change a lot. But even before I get into that, some Fight Week comments spillowing in. AJ says it was ultimately the southpaw nature of Usyk that gave him trouble. That if Usyk was a righty, he would have knocked him out. You buy that? Does that make sense? AJ says, I've always had issues with lefties, and it really just came out in this fight.
Brian, I don't buy that, BC. Like this is the thing with AJ, and I think this goes back to, this is another sort of quiet reason why fans here have a hard time, and just a lot of fans have a hard time really believing in AJ, because he, for all of his attributes, for his size, his power, the just clear natural athlete that he is, the fact that he is a good guy who seems to want to learn, all of that, he has a little bit of, and the longtime boxing fans will know what I mean. He has a little bit of, I hate to say, he has a little bit of Victor Ortiz in him, right? The welterweight. God. One-time champion, not all the way, right? I mean, but the way you could put a microphone in front of Victor Ortiz and have no clue what universe the words that were about to come out of his mouth were emerging from, and what sort of thin sense of reality he was pulling it from. And AJ has that, where he will just say something that sounds so clueless and crazy, like, it's because he was a southpaw. You think that was how many? I hope he's watched that fight more than like the 3, 4, 5 times most fans or we have, because I think you could watch that and be like, it isn't just because this man is left-handed that he, his movement gave you trouble, that his feints gave you trouble, that he outthought you, that he came in and sort of took the fight from you early on, that his motor basically wore you down, even after AJ really stood up a little bit and made some, had a little bit of a comeback, first in the 5th and 6th when he was landing the right, to upstairs, and then later 9 and 10 had some body shots that looked like they also got to Usyk a little bit. But eventually Usyk had more in the gas tank to close that fight strong and have AJ really looking almost out on his feet in the 12th. If you think it's just because of the left hand, you need to get a VO head check. Put some face lube on that thing.
Well, that's the perfect transition here, what you mentioned, the body shots. When I rewatched it with Luke Thomas, he kept saying, not enough body shots. He was right. There were little moments when he had success there, and you're like, that's how you slow down in Usyk. Since joining forces with Robert Garcia, the great Mexican-American Southern California trainer, who is, if he has one great skill, along with being an offensive style of coach, I think it's taking someone who's talented but a little raw, think Marcos Maidana heading into those Floyd fights, and just carve, almost what Trevor Whitman's doing on the MMA side, and you may not be as jived into the skinhead.
What are we talking about here? Ooh, I like it, though.
Yeah. But going to the body with a Robert Garcia as your trainer sounds like a great idea. Did you see the promotional videos or whatever that are coming on social media of Robert holding the bags and AJ just digging for gold? It's like, Emmanuel Stewart wants to the body, son. This could change everything if you are getting an aggressive AJ who's looking to set the pace and tone and is willing to get not dirty but grimy. It's got to fuel your advice that really this second fight could be completely different. Your perception of what it could be.
It could be, Brian, but if you look back at that first fight, why do we think that AJ managed to have a little bit more success to the body later in the fight? I don't think it's because he had no idea that he might want to try and attack the body of a much faster footed opponent. I think it's because Usyk was just way too fast and was in and out before AJ could really do much to him in that regard. I don't know if that's really going to change in that fight. In this fight, I think that AJ should try if he like that should be on his checklist. But that's a tall order to ask against one of the best movers at heavyweight we've seen in this era, and just has Usyk's got quite just a beautiful set of wheels on him. I mean, what a just he's got legs and he knows how to use them, Brian.
Yeah, he's good. He doesn't have Pacquiao-sized calves, but as Triple G once said, I like beautiful guys, and his style's certainly one of them. Stakes couldn't be higher. 3 of the 4 belts. In theory, the winner's going to advance on to face Tyson Fury. In theory. We'll find out. We want an undisputed champion, one face, one name, all that stuff. For AJ, it's another chance at redemption, and it would be a big one here, especially if he can make it a different fight. Is there any part of you that looks at Usyk and says, okay, AJ didn't, in all reality, AJ did not have enough success or enough sustained success in the first fight to really have a chance at one of those robbery scorecards, or if not robbery, one of those, man, did they give him the benefit of the doubt in every round? I mean, look, coming into that, some of the predictions, I predicted Usyk would win, but some of the predictions are like, your eyes will tell you Usyk will win, but typical boxing, AJ will get a majority decision win. I have to believe things will be closer in the rematch. I think AJ will fight better. I think the Robert Garcia relationship is a smart one. Is there any part of you that would advise Team Usyk to come in here not looking to get 12 rounds in a second win, but to come in here and find out whether that chin of AJ will be up to the level of the balls that he'll need to win this? Because you wouldn't outright call AJ chinny, but he's vulnerable. And nobody hits more direct, as we saw early in that fight, than Usyk, whether it's a straight left, whether it's the looping variety that he took Bellew out with. What if Usyk just says, I got to go out there and get it? Is that in play?
I don't see Usyk going out there with that exact mindset, but I think that he won't be afraid to try and seize an advantage if he really sees that AJ is hurt. And I think that I might call AJ chinny. He's about as close to chinny as you can get without being out and out. Like, I don't know about that guy's chin. He does not, and even when he isn't hurt by a shot, it seems like he is discouraged every time he gets punched, and it's boxing, right? It's boxing at the highest level. You're fighting an Olympic world champion, a guy who is undefeated, who is unified at cruiserweight, who already beat you. He's gonna touch you, all right? So AJ I don't know if it's more mental with him, or if it's mental in the terms of he gets discouraged when he's not having success, when he feels the guy starting to hit him, or if he's worried about the chin because of the Andy Ruiz fight and some of the other times we've seen him rocked and shaken by a shot here and there. Whatever it is, he doesn't respond well when he gets hit, and you can see, like, AJ, no matter how all the things that he brings into the fight, there's this, as a fan, there's a sense that watching him, he's going to, like, over the course of 12 rounds, he can find a way to let the wheels come off almost, like by hook or by crook, which is unfortunate because he's a very, very good fighter. I think that Usyk, I could see him getting that stoppage you're talking about, BC, if AJ really, really steps on the gas early, which might be something he has to do to win. But the risk of that, along with the questions about AJ's chin, whether he's chinny or just a little bit chinny, his stamina, right? We've always seen AJ get tired at points in a fight. And when he gets tired, he really looks chinny. And that is when I could see, Usyk not rocking him with one giant shot that ends a fight, but, dragging him into deep waters and tiring him out and drowning him there and getting a TKO stoppage like that in rounds, 8 through 10.
Yeah, that's interesting. And AJ's gonna have to lean all over him to try to slow him down. That's gotta be, if you're the bigger man, be the damn bigger man, okay? Don't be fighting like the Figueroas, although it's exciting to watch, by the way, but they give away that height, they get inside, lean on that fellow. It's interesting, Rafe, you're just saying AJ's not chinny, but he lives close enough to the chinny district that it spills over a little at times? Is this like you in Detroit? Like, you're not in the like crazy area, but you're close enough.
Look, let's not call any area crazy. I live on 9 Mile Road, so I live a mile outside of Detroit proper.
Wow, that's like Mom's Spaghetti area, right?
No, well, there's actually now a restaurant here called Mom's Spaghetti that Eminem owns, and that is further downtown from around 8 Mile. But I think Eminem's studio is pretty close to where I live.
All right, I take back, not crazy. I mean aggressive. I mean inner city. That's what I mean. Right?
Yeah, it's a city. They're obviously.
You grew up in New York City, okay? But you're like do people not give you the street cred and respect when you're like, I grew up in Manhattan?
I don't care. I'm 40 years old. I injure myself punching doors. Luckily, I am tall and, grew up in the 90s when New York was a little grittier and you just didn't have to be quite as, you just learn how to be quiet and stay out the way.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to give Manhattan the respect it deserves. I mean, it's not the Bronx. It's not Staten Island, okay? Against who? Against who?
What do you want me to do? I mean, Teddy, Staten Island, hey, there's a lot of New York's finest out there.
All right. I don't have a pick yet. I am really teetering here. I've gone back and forth. I've had picks all over the place. I am interested in yours. Our friends at Caesar Sportsbook right now, Usyk has a minus 210 favorite. I expected to see AJ in this spot, but instead, Joshua, a plus 175 underdog. Rafe, it's a Wednesday, but give the people what they want. Give them that Friday prediction right now.
Look, I think my pick to win the fight is Oleksandr Usyk. Not easily, but clearly that is what I believe. I think that he has enough ways to win this fight. I think that even if AJ does come with a better strategy and executes it, Usyk is a good enough fighter to adjust to that, figure out a way to weather the storm, and maybe make AJ pay for the aggression that he's going to that he might show in trying to sort of reverse his performance from the first fight. So I would pick Usyk to win. If I'm a bettor, I like the value on AJ because I think people are overlooking him. I think people are overlooking the success he had in the middle rounds. The fact that while I think I would have scored the fight about 8-4, I mean, that's only a couple rounds away from a draw. And I think that if we want to put on our tinfoil hats and start talking what the business wants, conspiracies, all that stuff, and I'm always happy to go there. I do think there are dark forces in the world of boxing, Brian.
Wow.
A man in the black hat may exist.
Would you connect it to the European banks and the Rothschild family?
Look, I don't know. Look, you tell me what's going on in underneath the Denver airport. I know that's where you go with this. But to me,
one day I'll find out what's really going on under there. Right?
All I'm saying, BC, is that it's that AJ doesn't. If he can make it a little tighter, I think the judges, there's a good chance they could see this fight going in his favor, and we've seen that happen in rematches and trilogy. If we're projecting out a possible trilogy here, there's always that one middle fight where really I didn't like they gave it to him. I didn't think he deserved it. And the business is going to want him to win that fight. He just has to do a little bit better, and that is not a crazy thing to imagine happening. I think that Usyk will. I think Usyk is better. I would predict for him to win the fight, predict for him to be ahead on my scorecards. I don't know if he will get that nod because it's boxing. This happens all the time. You said that Usyk was a clear enough winner in the first fight that no one really feared the robbery score. I feared the robbery scorecard. Are you kidding? I've seen worse robberies than that. Half of Omar Figueroa's biggest wins are robberies worse than that. I mean, this happens in boxing.
It's an effective robbery. It's still robbery. It's still robbery.
You were there. You saw what happened to Tyson Cave at the Night of Champions in Temecula, Brian. Escondón
did enough. Teddy can relax.